Hi there, Helen Wilkie back again with your 5-minute author notes. Today I want to answer yet another obstacle that people put in the way of getting started to write their books. And they will say to me, well, what would I write about? I don't know what to write about. How can I write a book when I don't know what to write about? Well, the answer to that depends on your answer to a deeper question, which is, why do you want to write your book? I don't try to talk people into writing books. I'm usually speaking to people who have at least had the idea that they would like to write a book. And so the first question I ask them is why? Why are you doing this? And usually their answer falls into one of two categories. The first is business, and the second is legacy. So let me just look at those two things individually for you. Many people who write business books are or aspire to be thought leaders. These are people who are usually been in business for some time. They might be corporate executives or they might be entrepreneurs, but they've been doing whatever it is that they do for a number of years. And they think differently about the subject matter that they deal with, differently from the rest of the world does, or the rest of most people do, which is what makes them a thought leader, because their thoughts are leading the way for other people. Thought leadership books are usually more dense. They're usually longer books and take longer to write, and there's more information in them. There's more thought in them, because that's what they're all about, thought leadership. The people that I work, and I have worked with authors who have written thought leadership books, but most of the people I work with are writing, if they're writing business books, they're writing how-to books. What they're doing is they are codifying some method that they have for doing something. They are teaching people to do a certain thing. It might be how to double your sales in 6 months. It might be how to close sales when you hate selling. It might be how to create a great PowerPoint deck. Anything like that that you have an expertise in, you can teach people how to do that. And those how-to books will never go out of style, because people are always looking for help in how to do something. It might not even be business. Sometimes it's to do with a hobby. It might be how to, I don't know, hit a hole in one. I don't play golf, so it's probably a silly title, but it could be something to do with a hobby or a sport or something you have some expertise in. Maybe it's photography. If it's something that you have a certain amount of expertise in, then you can, in fact, write a how-to book on that subject. Whether it's business or whether it's a hobby, if you play your cards right and you write a good book and you promote it properly, you can actually promote yourself as the expert that you are in that area. Now, think about that in a business setting. If you are talking to somebody who's potentially a client of yours, and you can say to them, well, I wrote the book on this. That changes the entire sales conversation, because now you have positioned yourself as an authority, an expert in that particular area. So that's what you write your book on. Of course, we'll go into it in a little bit more detail in later videos, but I just want you to think right now, if this is stopping you, if you don't know what you can write about, this is a good mental process for you to go through. The other type of book, but the other reason that people wonder what they could, the other reason that people write books is for legacy purposes. Now, people who write books for legacy, it's usually either a memoir or a biography or an autobiography. So let me talk about the differences among those three. First of all, an autobiography is a biography of yourself. The person who writes it is the person whose life is being written about. A biography is you write about somebody else's life. A biography is usually the person's entire life, from cradle to grave, or from cradle to their current situation if they're still alive. It's a life story. A memoir, on the other hand, is not. A memoir is usually about a slice of a person's life. Now, it might be time-based. It might be your childhood in India, or it might be when you were serving on a ship cooking for people on luxury cruises. It's usually and something like that that's a part of your life that you have stories about, that you can tell stories. They might be fun, upbeat, funny stories, or they might be serious stories that make your reader think. My most recent book is a travel memoir, which is about I live a lot of my life in Argentina. And so I've put together a bunch of stories about some adventures that I've had during my various times in Argentina. And it's a memoir, it's not a biography. But people usually write those, and mainly, I've never written a biography. Usually, my clients are writing memoirs. And the reason that people want to write memoirs, there's a couple of them. First of all, usually it's, as I say, for legacy. I spoke to a man who wanted to write his life story simply because his family didn't have any clue about what he had gone through in his life, just because of circumstances. And he wanted his family to know. He wanted to leave this legacy for his family to really understand his life. It might be, maybe it's not your story, maybe it's your grandmother's story, and you can interview her and write her memoir so that she will be able to leave a legacy behind of her story and what kind of life she had. Sometimes it's not that, it's just personal satisfaction. And my memoir of Argentina, what came into that category, I had never had any intention of writing a memoir about Argentina or about anything else for that matter. But I simply sat down one day when I was out for coffee in a cafe in Buenos Aires, and I started with my notebook and my pen, and I started to just write down the stories of some of the things that had happened to me when I was there. And I was just doing it for fun. I had no intentions of publishing it. I just thought maybe I'll make some copies for some friends. But I enjoyed myself so much when I was writing this because I was just laughing over and over again about what had happened during these episodes, these stories. And then people started to say to me, well, I think that might sell. So then I started to investigate and I realized that, yes, indeed, travel memoirs do sell. And this is a good book and it will sell. And it did. But I really did it for personal satisfaction. And don't underestimate that, because publishing a book, even if it never becomes a bestseller or anything like that, but just the act of publishing a book, finishing a book, writing a book, and putting it into print, I can't think of many things that will give you more personal satisfaction than that. So, what will I write about? Depends. Why do you want to write the book? So this is your homework for this week. If you've been thinking of writing a book, ask yourself the big why question, because you need this why. You need a strong why, because writing a book is a big commitment. And you need a strong why to get you started and to sustain you through the whole process and get it finished. So the first question is, why am I writing this book? Is it to position myself as a thought leader? Is it to bring in more business? Is it to leave my legacy? Is it to tell the world about my exploits in my life? And once you've done that, that will lead you on to realize what it is precisely that you want to write about. And just a word of caution here. If you decide you want to write your book for business purposes, avoid the trap of trying to write about everything that you know. People are very busy today, and people's attention span is getting shorter and shorter. People no longer want inch-thick books, if they ever did, but they don't now. They want a thin slice of your expertise. So you could be looking at a book of 100 to 150 pages maybe. It's a fairly slim book, but if it's substantial and has good information in it, then it's still an excellent, it's a book, it's an excellent business tool for you. So this week, get the answer to the question why you want to write the book, and from there, decide what book you'll write. So by next week, you'll know what you want to write about, and maybe you'll be ready to start the process of actually doing it. Happy writing, and I'll talk to you next week.